It's time for your Week 6 Blue Rush preview show. It's your Giants preview show for the New York Post and SNY. Prime time football is back in East Rutherford. The Giants host the Bengals on Sunday Night Football, so let's get straight into the show. He's Paul Schwartz. He's our Giants insider and beat writer for the New York Post, and he's got all the storylines you guys need to know. We've got some really cool next-gen stats for you guys presented by AWS, and we're going to break things down from the Bengals standpoint, of course, and know your enemy, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But, Paul, primetime football, you got the Wounded Cats coming into MetLife Stadium. It's right there in front of the Giants. What's going on, my man?
Yeah, right. Hey, Brandon. Very rarely, around Giants land, ever is, you start the week by saying, man, it's Bengals week. You're right. It's Cowboys week, man. It's Eagles week. It's Washington week. Never that I say it's Bengals week. These teams don't play that often. There's no real rivalry there or anything. But look, this is the schedule, and as you mentioned, the Bengals are in absolute number one desperation mode. And you know what? We'll get into that. I think the Giants have to feel the same way. The Giants very rarely win 2 games in a row. And they won a game. They had a great trip out to Seattle, but there can be no sense of good. We've stabilized things. 2 and 3, we're kind of okay now. We're coming back home. They have to be as desperate playing at home as the Bengals will be coming in here, or else, it won't be good. The Bengals are dangerous. And let's see, as we say every week, test. Yep. This is a test. This is a test. Every week can't be the biggest test, but right now this is the biggest test because, the Giants want to win this game on prime time, and all of a sudden we really have to take them seriously. If not, you're kind of back in with the teams that we don't really think can do a whole lot.
Yeah, we've seen the Bengals start off to slow starts before, and then it just takes one game for them to get going, and this cannot be that game. So before we talk about how desperate they are, what this game means to the Giants, can we get your practice report, injury report? We heard the news about Kayvon Thibodeaux. Any news on Malik Nabers?
Yeah, I think Kayvon's going to be out a month. You know what I mean? That's all it is. You have a break, you have surgery, you have a screw put in your wrist, and there's only, you can pad it up and do some things, but not after surgery. You have to, it's not a sprain, it's not a strain. So, this is the first real significant blow to the Giants, a long-term injury to a starter who will be difficult to replace. Obviously, they do have a experienced backup in Azzez Ojulari. Malik Nabers did on Wednesday what was needed. He did not practice, right, because he wasn't in any team drills or anything, or any individual drills, but he was on the side doing things, which is something he did not do last week. So I would think, unless he has any setbacks, and there can be setbacks with a player in concussion protocol because you are giving them more to do. You're running around, you're doing things on the field, and sometimes that can have an adverse effect on a player after he comes back in and takes a shower and cools down and I'm not feeling good. If things are there are no setbacks and he progresses, I would think he would be in line to certainly play this week. Thursday, Friday, we will know much more. But that's a good thing if he's back. Otherwise, they're pretty healthy team.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the concussion protocol. I remember when I suffered my second one up in Canada, and, you go through, you're running, you go in, you tell them you feel good, you go out, you put your helmet on, you run around, do a little bit more. But then I started having headaches once I got home. I felt good at the facility, but once I got home is when I started getting the headaches. So I had to go in, and you start all over. So you're hoping that there's no setback in this process. But, with all the concussions and Tua and that being a hot topic within the NFL, the Giants are going to play this slowly and make sure that their franchise wide receiver gets as close to, gets to 100% as soon as possible. But they want to be safe with that. You mentioned Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's unfortunate for him because the Giants pass rush, you need him. It's just like every single game, it's like you need him, but then you got a quarterback like Joe Burrow, who I think is the best quarterback they've seen this year, Paul. Is it safe to say that this pass rush is going up against the greatest quarterback they've seen throughout the year in this season?
Well, his stats are 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His passer rating is is sky high. I think it's first in the league or second in the league.
Yep.
Let's see. He's better than Darnold. Jaden Daniels is great as a rookie. He's better than Jaden Daniels. He's a lot better than Deshaun Watson. Dak Prescott is, the thorn in the Giants' side. As a pure passer, Joe Burrow's better. He's not like that run option and kind of make things happen option. Yep. Joe Burrow's great. I mean, he's a great player. The only thing that's ever stopped him is his health. They are a unbalanced team. They can score a hell of a lot of points. They're scoring 28 points a game. It's fourth in the league. There's nothing wrong with that. You can go to a Super Bowl scoring 28 points a game, but their defense is no good. Right now, or has not played well, certainly. So, Joe Burrow can tear you apart. I mean, he can absolutely tear you apart. He's got moxie. He's got that toughness. He's got that I don't give a you-know-what attitude also. He's a to play against, but they're 1-4. So certainly the formula and the recipe has not worked there in Cincinnati. But, yes, I mean, he can shred your defense. He can shred any defense. I mean, they scored 38 points last week against the Ravens and lost. I guarantee you if they score 38 points in MetLife Stadium Sunday night, they'll win.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these really cool next-gen stats, and it says he's thrown the second most yards in the NFL against split safeties, 2 high safeties this season while facing such coverage at the 3rd highest rate. It's like you're sitting 2 high safeties back because you don't respect their run game. Their run game is effecto non grado. But he's still able to get the ball off and have completions and have success, big plays in the passing game with 2 high safeties. That's just the greatness that the Giants are going to go up against. So you mentioned Kayvon Thibodeaux being down. It's another week where someone who, as we know in the NFL, you can call it not for long, a revolving door league, but you're going to get opportunity. We've seen Darius Slayton step up. We've seen Isaiah Simmons step up. Now, with a real Azzez Ojulari, please stand up because it is going to be the opportunity of a lifetime for a former second-round draft pick who makes plays when he's healthy. He's been healthy this entire year, but he's kind of been on the back burner, Paul. Only 1 sack this season. He's getting split time. But this is why you keep your head in the game. This is why you never get too high when you're having great moments as a player. You never get too low when you're in the dark days. Azzez Ojulari and this Giants defensive line is going to have to get after Joe Burrow.
Ojulari's a backup. I mean, that's what he is. They re-signed him. No, he's still on his contract, his deal, his rookie deal. And, why do you keep him? Because he's a backup. That's what he is. He's a decent quality backup. He's been a underwhelming starter. And he has had these opportunities before, and then he's gotten hurt. You know what I mean? So first of all, he has to stay on the field. I mean, he knows right now, I have a month of starting work ahead of me here. He has to stay on the field and, be productive over long stretches. They need him. Boogie Basham, I guess, will have to play, certainly. And that's okay. He's been a player in this league, but it's on Ojulari. Look, the Giants are first in the league in sacks with 22, and no one would have expected that. I wouldn't have expected that. I'll speak for myself. I'll speak for you too, Brandon, because that's the kind of relationship we have here on Blue Rush. You didn't expect it either, okay?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
Right. But, Kayvon has 2 sacks this year, right? He's got 2 sacks. That's not the measure of the man. He does more than that. I get that. So I'm not going to say he has 2 sacks. Easy to replace. That's not the case. But he's not the guy who's got 7 or 8 sacks and you can't replace him. Kayvon is a better player than Azzez Ojulari, but Azzez has played in the league. He starred in the league. So this is the kind of thing where, do we have a quality backup? The Giants are thinking. They have to think, yes, they do. He has pass rush ability. So it'll be interesting. Brian Burns has got to step up. Dexter Lawrence, I don't know if he can step up. He's got 6 sacks and he's trash talking and telling every guy on the other side of him. You heard him mic'd up, right? Yep. You got to, it's funny. It's funny. Dexter says, all they do, he doesn't complain about double teams. I will give him that, but he mentions them. I get double teamed. And then he goes out on the field. And what does he tell the guard in the center after the first snap? You guys got to double team me. You guys got to double team. He's telling them to double team him. He's getting in their heads. He said, I think I have to tell him to triple team me. Heck, triple team the guy. It's funny. Micah McFadden was asked this week, what is it like to play behind Dexter Lawrence? And you know what he said? It's easy. It's easy, right? I mean, it's like, ask Steve Kerr what it was like to be the off guard when Michael Jordan was in the game, right? Right? It's easy.
You're right.
You stand there if you're Steve Kerr. I mean, I remember when he wasn't the Warriors coach, when he was a spot up shooter for the Bulls. You stand at the 3-point line, right, with your feet there, and you stand there like this. And sometimes Michael Jordan will throw you the ball, right? And if he throws you the ball, you'll go sometimes, right? Sometimes. If he's double teamed, he won't. If he's triple teamed, he will. Yeah. And then he'll throw you the ball, and you will be open, and you need to shoot it. So, Azzez with Dexter being a menace in there, Azzez will have some open lanes. Cash in on them, and they can mitigate this loss of a good starting player.
Well, you're talking about the second level defenders and a Michael McFadden, a Bobby Okereke. What's that like playing behind a Dexter Lawrence? I'm thinking of the Tay Banks, the Jason Pinnock on the third level, because remember, this Shane Bowen defense is ran or the strength is the pass rush. So now you've got these corners and these defensive backs that can now have their eyes play through the receiver to the quarterback, and you're seeing all three units in terms of first level, second level, third level. They're starting to play together. They're starting to jump routes because they know the pressure's getting there. They're gambling on things, and you see in Tay Banks, where at the beginning of the season, Tay Banks and the Cordell Flotts, they weren't there on some of those catches. Those receivers were making the catches, and then they'd be tackled. But now you're seeing Cordell Flott, Tay Banks. They're there for the pass breakup a lot because they are trusting the pressure. They are trusting a defensive line that they have. And I feel as though these Bengals wide receivers shouldn't scare the Giants defensive backs. And I understand.
Yeah, why do you say that? Why do you say they shouldn't scare them? Aren't these guys are good?
These guys are really good, but if you're Tay Banks, I've already seen CeeDee Lamb, McLaurin, I've already seen DK Metcalf. So Jamar Chase, is he better than all of them? Yes, but Justin Jefferson, I've seen the top receivers in the league. If I'm Cordell Flott, I'm playing my best football right now. Jason Pinnock coming blitzing with the 3 sacks. Playing over the top. Tyler Nubin. It's only a matter of time till he makes a big play, because you see 31 around the ball a lot, and you see him in the locker room. He's got all the confidence in the world, like he's a vet. So when you're now as a DB, when you got the defense all playing as one, and you know that pressure is going to be there, you're not going to be left on some island. These dudes don't scare me. They're good. T. Higgins, the slot receiver. He's got a funny name. I don't know. They're good. They're really good. But you've gone through the gauntlet already when it comes to better, I guess, a better receiving core. And they put up a lot of points to throw the ball down the field, but I just feel like this is a prime game for the Giants DBs to really step up. And first, you got to tackle. 2, you got to get your head, up because they're going to take shots down the field. Joe Burrow has the most pass completions, 20+ yards, and we already know what Higgins and Jamar Chase can do in deep passes. But it's just one of them primetime games, Paul, where it's like when you get mad that the media is saying XYZ, and you get mad that the Twitter people are saying XYZ. There's no red zone on Sunday night. Everyone is drunk watching this game, putting their kids to sleep watching this game. So if you want to change that narrative, whether you're Giants defensive line or remember Daniel Jones kind of gave the media a little something, saying, oh, I guess we put that narrative to bed where, we didn't throw the ball down the field. They hear it. So this is your chance to kind of right that wrong or change the narrative about you. And it all starts against, if I'm the Giants DBs, no one respects them in this league. So now it's time to continue to take your respect. You did it against DK Metcalf and Jigbu Smith. Lockett, you had a pretty solid game against them. Now you do it against the Bengals receivers, and now people are talking, especially when you got the Eagles coming in next week, and we know what type of receivers they have on that side. What do you think about that, Paul, before we start talking about the offense?
Yeah, well, look, scared is not the right word. I wouldn't say the Giants should be scared of them. No question. I have to do a marquee matchup every week for the Sunday paper, right? Okay. Marquee matchup. So this week it's like, okay, that's easy. Banks against Chase, and I said no. I do that every week. You know what I mean? It's Banks against Jefferson. It's Banks against DK Metcalf. There are 10 other starters on the field for both teams, so it's like it can't be that matchup every week. So I went in another direction. We'll talk about that later because I know we're going to pivot over there. But so yeah. I mean, look, and that got me thinking. Boy, Deonte Banks, the life of a CB1, right? It's every week. I mean, sometimes you have a down week and the guy's just pretty good. You know what I mean? If you started a team, would you pick Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson? I don't care. Or CeeDee Lamb. I don't care. Yeah, whoever you pick, I'll pick the next guy, and we'll both be happy. So it's that is the job. Yes, there's no question. But this is a good group. I mean, T. Higgins is good. What's it? Andre Iosivas, I think it is. He's got 3 touchdowns. He can get down a feet. And look, with Joe Burrow, everyone has, you have touchdowns because he throws touchdown passes. We'll see. We'll see. I think sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for. Oh, it's prime time. This is the night for us to try and show who we are. Sometimes you do show who you are, and it's not always the best light. So we'll see about that. We'll see.
And a cool next-gen stat on Iosivas is that he leads his team in receiving yards versus man coverage. So that's something to keep an eye on. The boy can play. Let's flip Riverside because we've talked about Joe Burrow. We've talked about Jamar Chase. Now let's talk about another another LSU guy that everyone really wants to see out there, assuming that Malik Nabers clears protocol and he can play. Where do you see this Giants offense? Well, we'll break it down if he can play and if he can't play. How do you see Brian Daboll calling this game?
It's really fascinating, because if he can play, which I think he will as long as he doesn't have any setbacks, like I said earlier, do you just go back to, okay, it's 12 targets for Malik, it's 13 targets for Malik. Theo Johnson, you can block. Darius, you get your 3 or 4, but that's it. You have to come off a huge game in Seattle. It'll be interesting. Or do they, do they think he can? Malik is not going to practice normally. He didn't practice at all on Wednesday. He did stuff on the side. So this will be not a normal, move up to the game. It's not going to be normal for him, certainly. So do you think he can play 65 or 70 snaps? That's conditioning, things like that. He hasn't been doing all that stuff for, almost 2 weeks. So I think you still have to, look, if he's on the field, you throw it to him, but I think you have to balance it, keep it balanced because it worked last week and it needs to work. So I think you keep it balanced. If he can't play, you do the same thing. You spread it around and, you hope Darius has a second big game. And, I know we had talked earlier off camera about Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale needs to pick it up. What was that stat you had on Wan'Dale?
We got we will have some next-gen stats where Wan'Dale is like top 2 in the league when it comes to targets and catches short of the sticks. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on. We'll talk about the next-gen stats. But, yeah, it's going to be a receiver's game, Paul. You're talking about this Bengals offense that putting up, 28 points a game? It could be a potential shootout. And this defense has carried this team in both wins and even some of the games that they should have won. Now it's time for the offense to, like I continue to say, evolve and involve. And now you got to take this game over against a Bengals defense that's just absolutely horrendous. So whether Malik Nabers plays or doesn't play, if I'm Brian Daboll, I kind of come into this game with a similar game plan you had with the Seattle Seahawks. I may use a little bit more 2 running backs in the backfield like we were talking about, whether if it's Motor Singletary, if he's healthy enough to play, and Tyrone Tracy Jr. or whomever's back there. But using those guys on some orbit motions to get the Bengals' eyes. It's all about controlling their eyes, whether it's the second level and the linebackers or the third levels when it comes to their DBs, because their DBs are absolutely horrendous. The Brit kid is giving up. It's just like, hey, circle him when you want a big play because he's giving up the second most pass plays over 20-plus yards in the NFL. And you've got some receivers in a Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, and a healthy Malik Nabers who can go 20-plus easily. So it's
Brandon, they had a only defensive players only meeting this week. And you've been around sports long enough. You know how those things go, right?
Yeah.
Players only meeting. If the Bengals win this game and they hold the Giants to 20 or fewer points, all the Cincinnati media will be talking about that players only meeting. That galvanized us. That's the word. Players only meetings galvanize players unless you lose. And then you're kind of looked at and everyone makes fun of them. Oh, I guess, what did they talk about at the players only meeting? This is kind of a, hide the cheese, don't fall for the old, as Jim Fossil used to say, the late Jim Fossil, don't, banana in the tailpipe thing. The Bengals are allowing 151 rushing yards per game. That's 30th, right? So what do you say? As you just said, I think Devin Singletary's going to play. Now you have Tyrone Tracy. You can split them. You can pound them. You can run all these things. What did we see with the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys, after 3 games, had the worst rushing defense in the history, in Dallas history, one of the worst in NFL history after 3 games, and the Giants couldn't do a darn. They were like running into a brick wall. What, they have less than 30 rushing yards? Yep. So you can extrapolate that and say Brian Daboll has to attack them on the ground. The Bengals can come out and say, you know what, we're going to load up. Daniel Jones can't beat us. He can't beat us in the air, and things like that. So you know what it is. It's mix and match. We take away here, you take away here. But you have to run the ball. As we saw last week, if the Giants have to rely on Daniel Jones in these receivers, I don't care if Malik Nabers is in there or out. They're not gonna be Joe Burrow and put up 38 points. They're just not going to. Yeah. So they have to run the ball. And also another thing, what was one of the keys to the Giants defense last week? They were barely on the field. Time of possession, tremendous. Time of possession. If the Bengals have 37, 38 minutes of time of possession, they're going to win because you can't hold a team with that much, offensive potency if they're on the field all the time. So obviously you have to get them off the field, but the best way to get them off the field is don't let them on the field. Don't let them on the field. So Giants have been efficient, third downs, things like that. That's the best defense. Have Daniel Jones on the field, and unless there's a pick six, the Bengals can't score.
Lastly, Paul, before we get into know your enemy, primetime game, we talk about it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. For Daniel Jones, media-wise, New York media-wise, how big of a game is it for DJ, primetime, Sunday night versus Joe Burrow?
First of all, he's on a good stretch here, right? But, the stretch does not include 2 wins in a row, so it's very big. One bad game and the fans are going to turn on Daniel Jones. They just will. They will. It's home. They haven't won a home game yet. Do you know what his record is in primetime, Daniel Jones?
It's not good, Paul.
1-14 in primetime. 1-14. Now, look, as we've always said about primetime games, they don't put the Giants on against a Division III team, right? They put them on against a good team, the Cowboys, the Eagles, somebody else good. I think in one time in those 15 games, I think the Giants were favored to win. Wow. You know what I mean? And I think at least 5 times they were double-digit underdogs to not win. So, you're putting the Giants on against good teams. But, look, Daniel Jones, the rest of the league, the rest of the nation, when they see Daniel Jones, he loses. That's all there is to it. And so this is another primetime game. Sunday Night Football, Giants-Bengals is not a big rivalry, certainly. The Bengals are not a national team, even though Burrow and Chase are, you have fantasy teams, they're going to be high on a lot of people's lists. Yep. Higgins a little bit too. But, the nation does not have a lot of regard for the Giants. They won last week in Seattle. That was not a primetime slot. It's a late Sunday afternoon window, not to a lot of markets. So, it's big. It's very big for Daniel Jones. Plus, it gets them to 3-3 if they win. And a team that's 3-3 in this division will be considered a contender. If you're 2-4, you're on the outside looking in. I always say, I don't count the Giants and playoff contenders or anything until they get to 500. You win this game, you get to 500, you are in the mix. You're in the mix. Big game on prime time for everybody. Daniel Jones is the quarterback, so obviously it's always bigger for quarterbacks. You find a way to win if you're Daniel Jones, and people start looking at you a little bit differently.
It's right there for the taking, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the Bengals are 1-4 on paper, but like Paul said, they could light a scoreboard up with ease. So let's get the Bengals' point of view going into this Week 6 matchup and this week's Know Your Enemy. All right, it's time to break it down from the Cincinnati side of things with Jeremy, a.k.a. Bengals captain. You guys know him all throughout Cincinnati. Who dey, Captain? What's going on? Thanks for hopping on with us.
Who dey? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, Cap, this is our longtime Giants beat writer for the Post, Paul Schwartz. He's going to open things up. Paul, let's get him. Let's talk some football, man, because we were talking primetime football. The Bengals coming to MetLife Stadium. Let's break this thing down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many people thought the Giants would have a better record than the Bengals leading into this, Sunday night matchup. The Giants are underdogs in their own building to a team that's 1-4. So should the Bengals be favored in this game? And, what is the mood there? I mean, is it like the sky is falling? I mean, this is a team, I think, that people thought was a legitimate AFC contender, and they're on the precipice of being nowhere. What's the vibe down there?
It hasn't really worked out to start this year, has it? We all thought the same thing. I think the vibes in the locker room are going to be a lot different than the vibes in the fan base. In the fan base, the ship is actually sinking. There's a lot of worry about what's going on with the defense, giving up 41 points to the Ravens. In the locker room, they know what they have. They know the offense is capable of putting up points, and every week we have increased those points put on the board. There's still untapped potential in the offense, so I think that's where any expectation of the Bengals being favored comes from, is that high-powered offense.
So let's talk about Bengals defense, man, because obviously Trey Hendrickson is one of the elite pass rushers in the league, but outside of that, there's no sexy names when it comes to playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. So which unit do you attribute the shortcomings to? Defensive line, backers, or the third level in terms of the secondary?
Zac Taylor said that when somebody asked about safeties, he said, well, really, we have to look at every level of the defense. Everybody owns what's going on right now. I know the fan base, we're a little worried about the safeties. We brought in wan'dale, a trusted leader who's got some epic plays burned into our memories as fans. And Geno Stone was supposed to be that ball hawk coming in from the Ravens. Something's not working, and we've got some guys, Jordan Battle, who could step up. He made plays in his rookie season that a lot of fans are clamoring for. I know Lou, coming home, is going to want to put on a show and prove that his defense can actually withstand some of the injuries that they've had. We're getting some guys back healthy. So I think they're going to make whatever changes that they need to make, whether it's starting the game or in game. But you're right. Trey Hendrickson is the heart and soul of the pass rush. Sam Hubbard has provided some spark, but it looks like his first game back really healthy last week. He made some plays. Trey Hendrickson was battling the stinger. He might not have been the same. Hopefully he'll be a little healthier going into this week. But I know the Giants are battling some injury questions there too. So it's the blame on the defense, I think, goes from defensive line all the way to the secondary. They've just got to get back to their fundamentals.
Yeah, talking about cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt, he's allowed 159 receiving yards in coverage on 20-plus air yard targets this season. That's second most by any defender. And we talk about the Giants receivers. They got speed on the outside with, if Malik Nabers is healthy, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt. It's funny, Paul, that I'm about to ask this question, but do the Giants receiving core kind of scare you guys when it comes to this Bengals secondary?
Yeah, Malik Nabers is terrifying. I see a lot of Jamar Chase in Malik Nabers' trajectory. So there have already been a lot of jokes about, okay, how many yards is Malik Nabers going to pick up? Whatever that number is, if you're betting, hit the over. Cam Taylor-Britt, I know he's looking for that comeback game. He's had a couple of rough games that are very uncharacteristic. But you know what? Iron sharpens iron. Malik Nabers just has it. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to eat no matter what.
Paul, he said the iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, no, look, LSU, sometimes you look at them and say, how do they lose any games? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they had Jaden Daniels and Malik Nabers on the same team last year, right? Yeah, you mentioned Lou. Obviously Lou Anarumo, the former Giants assistant. He's a New Yorker. Yeah, I agree. He's going to want to come in, and this is a shabby product he's put out there. They know. I heard the Bengals defensive players had a players-only closed-door meeting. Which we all know how that goes, right? You know what I mean? It'll be the reason why they won, or it'll be laughed at if they lose. But yeah, Lou Anarumo was a guy who was getting a lot of talk. I mean, he got some interviews for head coaching jobs, when Cincinnati was, on the ascend. And, obviously this is a really rough start for him and his defense. I do think they will play better defense on Sunday night just because they can't play much worse. And the Ravens are not the Giants. You know what I mean? The Ravens with Lamar. He's a bear to with Derrick Henry. They're almost impossible to stop on the ground. The Giants' running game is not that certainly. I'm wondering, what are people saying about Zac Taylor? You know what I mean? I mean, he's a young guy. He's been in a Super Bowl. I mean, is he? I think, I'm probably not hot seat. We can all throw around all these guys at hot seat, but are people getting a little frustrated with him with this start?
Fan base is definitely frustrated. It's tough because after every loss, there's going to be that instant reaction. And then the little bit of time to look at film and analysis and maybe hear what other people have to say. And then you gauge your reaction. You maybe shift there. Zach got a lot of heat for the play calling in overtime. Come to find out that second down, Burrow checks into a run out of the pass. But really, it's never that one play. It's never that one call. It is a collection of decisions throughout the game from the players, from the coaches. I know the staff itself has said, they're going to look internally to see what they can do to improve. Joe Burrow's having a season like no other, and he's even said he's going to try to find a way to squeeze out anything additional that he can, with everyone kind of making comments about the defense. So the fan base feels split right now, understanding that you can't give up 41 points in a game and expect to win. And the other people, obviously, are worried about Zach and think we should be more aggressive on offense. Again, putting up the numbers that Joe Burrow and company have put up, I don't know how much more aggressive you can possibly be, but the seat is definitely warm. I think it's going to be warm for anybody who's 1-4.
Well, I mean, are we talking Robert Saleh warm, or are we just talking, do the automatic car starter, from your living room before you get in the car in the morning just to warm up the seats? What type of warm are we talking about?
It feels like maybe end of tenure Bill Belichick warm. It's like, hey, the guy got us to a Super Bowl. We've got a high-powered offense, the best offense we've ever had under Zac Taylor. So the temperature is a little bit cool, the cool warm on that scale.
Does the fan base feel like you guys' window is closing?
I think that's a Cincinnati thing. We always feel like the window's closing. We have not forgotten the 90s and all the terrible records of the year and all the jokes and everything else. I think that has stuck with us. So it's always closing. I don't agree. I think with Joe Burrow, we always have that chance. But there's some fear and anxiety in the fan base.
How's the fan base looking at this game in terms of, okay, we're playing the Giants? What do you guys, when you're talking to, you're on social media, you're doing your show, what are you guys feeling in terms of being 1-4, going on a road game to New Jersey, primetime game against the Giants? Do you look like this could be the game to get you guys back on track, or are you kind of biting your nails a little bit?
Oh, the nails are gone. I don't care
really?
how optimistic you are or how negative, the nails are gone. This is pretty much a must-win. Recovering from 1-5, I don't know that anyone has ever done it. And again, Malik Nabers is terrifying. Daniel Jones, one of those guys where that ceiling is high. I know the talk, and I know New York is a tough media town. Daniel Jones, he's got wheels. He can make plays. He's had some good games. He's heating up a little bit. we're all a little bit terrified. We know we have to win. So the fingernails are absolutely toast. I worry about some of the fans going after the toenails next. Like, don't do it. This is a must win.
Paul,
I'm wondering. Jamar Chase and the LSU thing. There's a brotherhood there with those receivers. Is he taking this? He doesn't want to be upstaged by his buddy Malik Nabers on national TV. Chase is. We all know how great he is. In every fantasy football league, he's a top 3 or 4 pick, right? You know what I mean? With that quarterback and that receiver. And now the new kid in town, Malik Nabers, he didn't play last week. We get it. We think he'll play this week coming out of concussion protocol. Jamar Chase, I would think he is, looking at the Giants defensive backs, but also looking at Nabers and saying, kid, you're not going to, when this game's over, they're going to be talking about this LSU receiver and not that one. Do you think there's something to that with him?
I think so. I think Jamar Chase, he's a competitive guy. He definitely does not want to be upstaged. I think, the right amount of ego in a game like this can help us. It can definitely help the Bengals to find maybe a couple extra plays here and there that we might need. I think it's going to be a close game. Regardless, I think it's going to be a close game. And if Jamar Chase needs that little bit of edge, I definitely say run with it. I'm already looking at Lou. Lou's got that motivation to dig deep. Now you wonder, well, why weren't we digging deep a couple of weeks ago? Mike Hilton recently came out and said, well, maybe we're trying to go after the turnover. We're trying to strip the ball. We're not concentrating enough on tackling. You know what? It happens. We've all been there with our jobs where, you get a little tunnel vision. You start veering off the path. You got to get back to the fundamentals. I think everybody's going to be additionally motivated and extra focused this week to make sure that they don't slip to 1-5. So it's a desperate team, but I think it's desperation in a good way.
You mentioned Jamar Chase's ego could be a good thing. On the flip side, Paul and Cap, the Giants could turn this ego into disaster. Because if you think about he's going to get doubled. He's going to command some sort of attention. So you take that, Cap, and then you take the fact that the Giants' pass rush leads the league in sacks, and they're getting after quarterbacks. So if Joe Burrow doesn't feel comfortable throwing in the double coverage to him, 2, doesn't have time to throw at him, then that's when receivers, they don't see the pass rush. They just know I'm open. That could turn into something huge. So when we talk about the Bengals offensive line, how do you feel they hold up against this Giants pass rush?
This will be a great test. We have been extremely happy. Orlando Brown Jr. is playing his best ball in pass protection of his entire career. The line has been what we've been begging for Joe Burrow since he's gotten into the league. There's still work to do. We could still improve that. And Joe Burrow, you could see just against the Ravens, he's still got the wheels. He's still elusive. So he got out of some sticky situations, but we also set ourselves, behind the sticks on a couple of the sacks. So everyone is talking about the pass rush from the Giants. That is terrifying. We are definitely hoping that we come out with kind of a quick passing game, make sure Joe Burrow's always got that outlet available. And if Jamar Chase is frustrated, I don't think it's going to affect any other part of the game because we've got T. Higgins, we've got Yoshi, we've got Jermaine Burton waiting in the wings who really has not seen the field a whole lot, who could potentially be an X factor if he's got a deep reception. So thankfully it's the offense that has the weapons and the opportunities. It's the defense we're going to worry probably the most about.
Paul, you got anything else, Paul, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just want to know, can the Bengals run the ball? I know that, they're way down at the bottom in rushing. Sometimes that's you're behind. You have to throw. You have Burrow. You want to throw because if the Giants can make them fairly one-dimensional, and it's a really good dimension, I get it. I think Burrow's great. I'm not the only one who thinks that. They're 1-4, and their quarterback is healthy and it's great. That's really screwed up. You know what I mean? But can they run the ball? Their running backs don't really scare anybody. They don't like running the ball as much, I don't think. But, if the Giants can do a good job with that, then they can deal. You mentioned the quick game. I mean, Higgins and Jamar can take a quick game and go 80. You know what I mean? We know that. You know what I mean? So, they don't have to settle. But, can they run the ball? Can they just man up and run the ball? And if they can, I think then, run pass option is going to be a big problem Sunday night.
I don't think we've seen what we want to see from the run game yet, but we've seen those glimpses. So when you look at the stats against the Ravens, you look at the choices to run in overtime, you might question, well, why were they thinking about that? But if you look at how the game started, you've got Chase Brown immediately ripping off a 16-yard run. You've got Zach Moss with glimpses. We'll have an explosive play on the ground here and there, scattered with maybe a run right in the middle for no gain. So it's a lot of hit or miss, swing for the fences, or you're just running to run and hope you can keep the defense eyeing on that play action pass. But if the Giants do stop the run and completely take that out, I worry that it does take away a newer option for the Bengals this year, and that's a play action pass. Joe Burrow has improved some of his fakes. I saw him with an old school boomer holding the ball by the hip, a really good fake earlier in the season. So if the Giants do stop the run and mitigate Chase Brown's speed, and the Bengals don't try to find another way to get Chase Brown involved, and again, no offense to Zach Moss, he's done a great job, but it's Chase Brown's speed that really helps our offense go. It's going to be a different look for the offense, and they're going to have to figure it out in game.
All right, Cap, tell the people where they can find you on social media, man.
It's super easy, at BengalsCaptain, no matter where you look. Twitter, Instagram, I still call it Twitter, BengalsCaptain. Love to talk to y'all.
All right, man. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Today.
Thanks for that, Cap. Hey, Paul, I think this is the first time we've heard someone say they're nervous going into the Giants, man. It's a new time. It's a new time here at the 2-3 Giants, man, putting some good stuff on tape. What do you think about that?
Well, I think when the Cap talks, you got to listen. If you wear that hat, then you're you got to listen to the Cap. You know what I mean? The captain, that's a high-ranking official in Cincinnati right there.
All right, we listened to the Cap. Now it's time to listen to some of these next-gen stats. We're going to detail our work and look at these next-gen stats that's powered by our good friends over at AWS going into this game, so we can break it down even more for you guys. It all goes down to the details, not the DMs. That's a song by Yo Gotti. All right, starting. Here we go. First one, next-gen stat. Bengals right tackle Amarius Mims is tied for the fewest pressures allowed on the Bengals line this season. He's a rookie, and he also has the 6th lowest pressure rate among right tackles. He's allowed 1 sack on the season, Paul. Brian Spider-Man Burns lines up and will be lining up against the young right tackle. Spider-Man has to save the city this week. How big is this one for Brian Burns?
You confused me with DMs and Yo Gotti, first of all. So I don't know what that is. Yo Gotti plays left tackle, right? But I don't.
Amarius Mims is the Bengals right tackle. He plays right tackle.
Not okay. DMs. Sometimes we talk a different language. We're close in age, but not quite there, right? Look, Brian Burns, and this is the thing, right? When they got Brian Burns, it was, now we got Brian Burns, and now we got Kayvon Thibodeaux, right? Yep. And they got big decks in the middle, who are they going to double? Great. Burns has played fine, but, huge sack in Seattle where they decided not to block him, keep third down play, right? But it was a 4th down play, either one. It got the Seahawks off the field. Now he's got no Kayvon Thibodeaux for a while here with the wrist injury. So, look, I know he's got good numbers, Mims. He's a rookie, right? He's a rookie. And any veteran like Burns has got a lot of tricks of the trade. It's got to be advantage Giants there. Rookie versus veteran, a guy like that. I remember Michael Strahan when he was going up against a rookie, even if the rookie was good, he always kind of sat back and said, I got things to show this young guy. And Burns needs to show this young guy, some of his things.
Yeah, they're going to see each other a lot because Brian Burns lines up on the left edge 69.5% of the time. He leads the Giants with 22 total pressures. He also has 3 games where he's had 5+ pressures. They're going to have to get at Slim Shady, a.k.a. Joe Burrow. You know who Slim Shady is, though, right? No Yo Gotti, but Slim Shady? Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, on the other side, Trey Hendrickson is their pass rusher, their premier pass rusher. He's accounted for 32.4% of the Bengals' pressures and 42.9% of their sacks. That's 4th highest this season. He's generated 23 pressures himself in 2024. So normally, with the old Giants offensive line, Paul, that would have made me nervous. But how do you think this year's Giants O-line holds up against Hendrickson?
Well, just like we mentioned with Deonte Banks, right? There's always that number 1 guy coming at you. The left tackle, Andrew Thomas, every week, who's the monster this week? Who's the monster this week? I didn't even realize. I had to look. Trey Hendrickson had 17.5 sacks last year. I mean, I obviously knew that, but I didn't think of that, and now I know it. I mean, imagine if a Giants player had 17.5 sacks in a season, right? I mean, Kayvon had, 12.5 or 11.5, and we think of him as differently than and Trey, and he's got 62.5 sacks in his career. He's a premier pass rusher, and but this is what the job of the left tackle is. I think Andrew Thomas will do. Andrew Thomas was really ticked off about the job he did against Myles Garrett, right, in a win. Yep. He's a good player, a really good player. I think he'll be up to this challenge.
Yeah, he's been playing lights out. He is, you said premier player. You got it right there. And it's been great to see his growth and the ups and downs that he had to go through to settle in as a star in this league now, and that's an offensive lineman. Here's one I got for you. I pulled this for you. Daniel Jones has attempted 29 passes from outside the tackle box. That's tied for the 2nd most among quarterbacks this season. He's completed 12 of 29 passes from outside the tackle box, like I said, and that's averaging just 3.5 yards per attempt. If you're Brian Daboll, do you keep him on the move this week?
I think a lot of this, I want to know if you agree, I think a lot of it is not scripted. A lot of it is him busting the pocket. You know what I mean? And he's done a good job of that.
Yes,
he's avoided sacks. He sees it. And, maybe in the past he would have run. I still think, post ACL, he is not the dynamic runner that we've seen. He did some good things on the ground last week, but it was not dynamic, certainly. He's not that put the foot in the ground. Man, that guy's fast. We have not seen that flash of speed, really. So I think a lot of it is he's getting out of the pocket, and they're not a great scramble drill team. They're not. You know what I mean? He's out of the pocket, and you see, I hate to bring up Mahomes and the Chiefs, but when he's out of the pocket, you see those guys, as a receiver, right? Yeah. You're completely breaking off your route, and it's all instinct. You're coming back to the ball. You're making it easier for him. Giants aren't great at that. It's a lot of, wan'dale, short of the sticks, that kind of thing, throwing to the sideline to Malik Nabers, short, on the sideline. And Daniel can throw it in there, and get it there. But so getting out of the pocket's fine. They're not a great team once you get out of the pocket. Daniel Jones is not the great improviser. He just isn't. That's not his thing. He can get out of there, but making big plays, that's a different story. They've not, that's not their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's something that you want to see them continue to work on and get better at, because there's plays to be made when you can extend a play. You mentioned Mahomes, Daniel Jones, as he continues to, I guess, trend up. This can be something you add to your game. And you mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson. He leads the NFL with 41 targets short of the sticks this season. That's 11 more than the next closest player. Robinson has recorded 29 receptions on targets short of the sticks for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's got 7.3 yards of average route depth, and that's the shallowest amongst all wide receivers in the NFL in 2024. I don't even know what these stats are. So I don't even know what, but is this a Wan'Dale Robinson bounce back game?
Well, I mean, the Bengals have a bad defense. Wan'Dale caught a touchdown. Does he need to bounce back? He had a drop. He's had a drop, which was he's had too many drops. He really has. It's been, for a guy who's in the slot with Malik Nabers lining up, in 4 of the 5 games, he's been good but not great. He's a 2nd round pick. We all like Wan'Dale a lot. He's a good player, but I think he needs to pick it up. He needs, he had some yak yards. He got some yards after catch last week, and they need more of that. If you're going to run the route short of the stick, you better get the first down, right? You better make a guy miss. And he was doing some of that. He does some nice spin moves. He does a lot. He does some of that. I want more of it. He doesn't have big strides. He's a short guy. There's a lot of good slot receivers in this league. He's one of them, but to take that next level, there is another level for him, that we're waiting for. There definitely is.
And when I say I didn't know what the next gen stat means, I was just a lot of numbers. That's just for the people at home.
It's a little mathy for us. It really is. It's a lot of numbers.
My math ain't mathing, Paul. You check my SATs back when I was in high school. But what it's saying is, let's say it's 3rd and 11. He's catching the ball at 10 yards. He's catching it in front of the sticks, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if it was 3rd down, that's definitely a problem. But let's say it's 2nd and 11. He catches it at 8. Wan'Dale Robinson has the ability to make a guy miss and get you 3 to 5 yards so we can get the first down and more. Or
make it a manageable 2nd or 3rd down, right? If it's first down and he catches a 6-yard pass, that's a positive play.
Yep.
It's short of the sticks, but it's 2nd and 4. That's fine. That's fine, right? There should be a separate thing for short of the sticks and you don't get the first down.
Yep.
That is no good. Yeah, so he runs. That's what he does. He runs a lot of those routes.
And we want to see him expand on his yak factor. Turn that 3 to 6 yard of extra yak, turn that into a 15 to 20 to a 30, like we know he can do and like everyone has seen him do before. So we don't want to say bounce back game, but it could be one of those y'all must have forgot about me type games. Like I'm still him. I'm still Wan'Dale, 2nd round draft pick out of Kentucky. Paul, take us home, man. Final thoughts.
Look, it's prime time. It's a bad time for the Giants. Usually, history. I imagine the crowd will be, juiced up, right? Look, you got Yankee fever in this town. You got Mets fever in this town. There's a lot of sports juju in New York and New Jersey right now. And look, the Jets fired their coach. That's a downer for them. You know what I mean? We'll see. They don't play till Monday night. The Giants are coming off a win. Can the Giants keep this up? You know what I mean? A win and a win and everything's possible. Not Super Bowl, not crazy talk possible, but everything's possible at 3-3 after 6 games. They lose and they're 2-4, and it's okay. It's win 1, lose 1. It's kind of, they're just one of those teams. And as I mentioned, prime time for Daniel Jones and the Giants is a big, big bugaboo. It's an issue with them. Can they pass it? And they have not won a home game this year, right? The fans deserve to see a good product and a win. They have not won a home game this year. They won in Cleveland, so the people in Cleveland think the Giants are pretty good. They went all the way to Seattle and won, and so the people in Seattle think the Giants are pretty good. Now it's time for the people in East Rutherford, New Jersey, to see a game and say, wow, our team's pretty good. That's what this week is about.
And I'm glad you said that, because it's one thing to prove to yourselves. It's one thing to kind of prove it to the league. But when you can do it at home and prove it to your fan base, to the people that no matter what, they're still showing up at these games. When Cowboys fans or Seahawks fans in the past have tried to take over the stadium after a bad game, there's still Giants fans in the stands, in the cold, still going to Let's Go Giants and chanting. So this game is, it's for the players. It's for everyone within the building, but it's also for everyone within the stadium as well, who's been rocking with this team through good, through bad, through ugly. Now it's that chance to go out and beat a quality opponent. I don't care that they're 1-4, still a quality opponent with stars on the other side of the football. And you could do it at home in front of the fan base. And, man, just think of what the buzz is going to be like if you win this game. You go to 3-3, and then you got Saquon and the Eagles coming in next Sunday. But one game at a time, Paul. One game at a time. Thank you guys for watching the Blue Rush preview show. We had ourselves a great time. Thank you for the Next Gen Stats, AWS. And thanks, Captain Bengal, for coming on for Know Your Enemy. We'll see you guys Sunday for Primetime Football. I'm Brandon London. That's Primetime Paul. Thanks for watching Blue Rush.